You're listening to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast with Randy Rubenstein, episode 85.
My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast, where we believe when your thoughts grow, the conversations in your home flow.
Well, hi guys. How are you today? I have an interesting topic, and it's about the small daily acts, the micro baby steps that we take to make a difference between living a life of stagnation to living a life of transformation. So often people come to me and I'll say, well, how's it going? And they'll say, fine. And all fine means to me is I'm living a life that nobody has cancer, we can pay our bills, and we're just kind of existing. And what I want to say to you guys is nobody dreams of that life. Like, we all have or had at some point hopes and dreams, and we want more for ourselves. We want, we have this vision. If you really go back to when you first found out, let's say you were pregnant and you were going to become a parent, like what parent were you going to be? Maybe there was a parent. I remember this mom that used to drive. We used to be in a carpool, and her name was Nancy Brown, and I loved Nancy Brown. And when I grew up, I wanted to be just like Nancy Brown. It just seemed like it was fun in Nancy Brown's house. And so I didn't think about it consciously, but it came up actually maybe like a year and a half ago. All of a sudden, Nancy Brown came up in my head, and I was like, yes, that was the mom. Like, it just seemed like it was fun being Nancy Brown's kid. So there's some fantasy somewhere that you dreamt of for yourself. And it might be that you want to have, you want to look a certain way, but it's not really that you just want to look a certain way. It's like you're envisioning who the person you would become if you looked a certain way. I mean, even I've read studies about people who buy like fancy sports car. Some people have a genuine appreciation for fancy sports cars, but really it's who do they think they're going to be when they're driving that fancy sports car? Like, what version of themselves? So if you really tap into whatever that dream is, whatever those fantasies have been, it's not a life that is fine. It's a life that's fan-freaking-tastic. Like, it's a life where you feel like you're thriving. It's a life that you feel maybe happiness for the first time for real, or joy for real. And most people aren't living that life. So I want to offer you guys today on the podcast how you begin to create that life that is way better than fine. How you start to have a life that feels transformational. And it may not be what you think, because many of us are like, well, if I just won the lotto and I didn't have to worry about paying my mortgage, or if I just got this one thing, or if I could just lose 20 pounds, or if I could just afford to buy that house. Like, so often we think it's something so much bigger than it really needs to be, just to get started, to start feeling better, just to start feeling better, to start living and creating that life that is somewhere deep buried within your brain that you may have forgotten about, but I promise you it's still there. It's still there. So I want to help you guys just take some practical steps today to get started. So there's a big difference between 0 and 1%. Okay. And let me explain what that means. You may think if you increase your salary by 1%, it's not going to make a big difference. Or you may think that if you lose 1% of the weight that you want to lose, or whatever it is, that it's not going to make a big difference. But this is what I want to say. 0, when you stay at 0, you are you're not doing anything. When you stay at 0, you're saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next year. And you have all kinds of reasons why it makes sense to stay at 0%, because 1% isn't going to make enough of a difference in your life. And so it's not really worth it. And remember, the brain seeks the familiar. So we're always trying to accidentally sabotage ourselves, because to do something different, to get started, to be willing to just go to 1% of a difference in something, is something that's a shift and something different than you're doing today. And so it's unfamiliar to the brain, and it's gonna expend more calories. So you accidentally talk yourself out of it and sabotage yourself. And you're like, it's like if all of a sudden, if you were trying to not eat sugar, and you if you were trying not to eat sugar and you eat a cookie, and before you know it, you've eaten a whole sleeve. Because in your brain, it's like, well, one cookie, well, I've already ruined it, so I might as well just eat an entire sleeve. And so you throw it all away. When the truth of the matter is, even if you ate that one cookie and it was just, you didn't, totally nail your new eating plan because you ate that cookie, or you ate 2 cookies. And at the end of the day, it was like, well, I blew it. I blew my diet. I blew the whole thing, instead of saying, well, I did 1% or 5% better than I've been doing before today. So it was still like a big improvement, because I did a little bit, I still ate the cookie, or I still ate a couple cookies. And so you don't celebrate that little bitty improvement. It's almost like it has to be all or nothing. Does that make sense? And so your brain goes to the place of, if you've already blown it, you might as well eat the whole sleeve. But the truth is that if you had just eaten 1 or 2 cookies, you could still meet your health goals. You just might need it a little bit more slowly than you had originally envisioned, but you'd still be improving. You'd still be taking action. You'd still be making changes in your life. So often we go so extremist, and I'm the queen of this. Like, I'm a total extremist. And so learning this concept of, it doesn't have to be so extreme. Like, if I'm trying to make better food choices, if I don't make perfect food choices all day, that's okay, right? That's okay. I don't have to go to that extreme place and completely blow it. So in terms of, I wanted to kind of talk about this in terms of just like your overall life, and then bring it back to parenting. So let's say you're a yeller, right? And you swore to yourself that maybe you grew up in a household where there was a lot of yelling. You knew that it felt terrible. You swore you weren't going to be a yeller. And now you find your kids are pushing your buttons. You had a strong-willed one. You have every reason in your brain why you wouldn't be a yeller if everybody else would just behave according to plan. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, and you can't control the people. And so before you know it, you find yourself yelling because they don't listen to you the first 20 times when you say it calmly. And so then you resort to yelling. And when you go to bed at night, you think about, your brain is, you can't turn your thoughts off. And so your brain is ruminating, and you're thinking about just how it just was not a fun day, or it didn't feel connected. It didn't feel joyful. You feel guilty about all the times that you yelled, and you can try and justify it. But at the end of the day, your brain's not turning off, and your body's not letting you off the hook, because you can't fall asleep because you feel so guilty, because the day didn't go the way that you wanted it to go. And somewhere subconsciously, it's like that old fantasy of the person that you were going to be is creeping in. And there's all this evidence from the day as to why you're failing at your job. And you may not be, we're not thinking this consciously, but we're thinking it subconsciously. And the subconscious programming in your brain is what runs the show for you 95% of your life. So it's going and it's ruminating. And so you have insomnia. And then you're going to feel terrible the next day because you didn't get enough sleep. And so you'll be on edge, and the buttons will get pushed more. And then you'll find yourself yelling again. It's just this vicious cycle. And that vicious cycle keeps you in a place of stagnation. You're fine. Everybody's fed. Everybody's getting their homework done for the most part. And it doesn't it's not the family you craved. It's not the family you envisioned so long ago. And so your body knows that, and it keeps you up at night. When everything gets quiet and you can't check out on the device, or you can't scroll through social media, or you can't do the thing to distract you, the thoughts ruminate and the guilt ruminates, and you stay up and you stay stuck. So what's at the root of it? It's what's at the root of all of that is that you feel deep down like every time you yell or lose it, or ignore your kids, or choose to not spend quality time, or whatever it is, whatever pressure you're putting on yourself deep down, that's coming up for you. And so what I have found is that no parent says, my biggest limiting belief that keeps me stuck in this life of stagnation is that I'm really worried that I'm failing as a mom or I'm failing as a dad. Nobody consciously recognizes that. And yet when I dig and dig and dig, that's the thought that comes up over and over again. So I want to offer you the place to start, the place between 0 and 1% that will start to make the changes in your life that's going to lead to transformation and help you to escape the life of fine, the life of stagnation. And that is just start with a breath. Start with a breath when you want to yell, even if you just do it one time today, even if it's just one time, like a deep, audible, exaggerated breath, literally like you feel like you're about to lose it. Your heart's racing. Your kid's whining, they're pushing your button, you've asked them something a million times, and you're just about to lose it, and you catch yourself, and you just do a, which will cause pause in your kids, especially if they're a little older, like, who's the freak show and where's my mom? Like, what are you doing? What is that? It's a start. And I promise you, if they say any of those things to you, you just put your finger up and you just kind of like take a minute for yourself to calm yourself down. And you're just like, it's just a breath. It's just a breath. It's just a breath. And you just calm yourself down and you take a breath and you put your finger up. And when they're like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? If you have an older child, a little child might just look at you and you can just put words to it and say, I'm feeling like I want to yell right now. And I'm just trying to calm myself back down. I'm really frustrated. I'm starting to feel angry and frustrated and annoyed. And I just want to calm my body down. If you start there, you guys, just there, a breath. And if your kids question you on it, you just explain that you're taking a breath so that you don't yell. And you explain whatever the emotion is that you're feeling in your body that is causing you to feel high levels of stress, that you're trying to calm yourself down. If you put words to that emotion and you model that for your kids, you have now just modeled one of the most critical life skills for your children. Because if they grow up with mom or dad taking a deep audible breath to calm your body down when you feel annoyed, frustrated, whatever that negative emotion is, like, you are teaching them, I think, one of the best life tools you could teach them. So start there. Just start with that 1% shift. Even if you only do it one time and all the rest of the times you lose it and and you scream your head off, one time, just start there because it's a start. It's a start. And what you'll see is that when you start to notice that it's going to be easier to do that a second time and a third time and a fourth time. And before you know it, you'll be taking deep audible breaths anytime you start to feel stressed out rather than losing your shit. And your kids might say, like, what's wrong? What's going on? My kids used to be like, look at me and they're like, it's like as if someone was in trouble. And I'd be like, no, I'm just stressed out about something else. I was just trying to calm myself down. That's okay. That's okay. It teaches them something so impactful. So when you're laying down, let's say you take the deep breath and you do it one time, but you still lose it however many other times, and you do a whole host of other things, and you're laying in bed and you're lying awake, your body's so tired, but your brain won't shut off. and you have that rumination going through your brain, the spinning thoughts, you're feeling guilty, you can't sleep. Your brain's not letting your body sleep. I want you to start by celebrating one thing you feel proud of today. If it's that you took the breath instead of yelling, then you celebrate that. You're laying there, your thoughts are spinning, and you're literally going to say to yourself, like, what's one thing I feel proud of today? Maybe the one thing is that you're the kind of parent that listens to a parenting podcast. Like, you could be binging Netflix or something probably a lot more entertaining and fun than this right now. But you're the kind of parent who chooses to put information in your ears to help you begin living that life that is way better than fine. You care about your family enough to be here listening to this. That's something to be celebrated. I think that it's completely worthwhile. So you're laying there, your brain is ruminating about all the things you did wrong, and you say, stop it. Stop. You, like, in your head, you're saying, stop it. What's one thing you can celebrate today? What's one thing you did well today? What's one thing you can feel proud of today? Because that's the only thing you really have control over, is your thoughts. We don't control our kids. We don't control other people. If only they would stop pushing our buttons or do this or do that, life would be so much easier. But the only thing we really have control over are the thoughts going through our head. So why not take the opportunity starting now, just 1% of the time, and choose more useful or helpful thoughts? Because what you focus on grows. So if you choose to take that one breath, if you choose when you're laying in bed to find one thing you feel proud of yourself, and you celebrate that, what's going to come next? Like, don't you think you deserve to be celebrated? Like, what about that? What if you just started celebrating yourself? Because when you start to celebrate yourself, even in little tiny ways, and nobody needs to know about it, is in your head with you. You can celebrate whatever the thing is. Maybe you wanted to have a more productive day and you chose to get up and do a guided meditation and take a walk and listen to a parenting podcast and exercise. Like, what about celebrating that? I'm doing something healthy for me, and it would have been much easier to just do what I normally do, but I chose to make a difference today. I'm the kind of person that takes action. I did that today. Did I go and work out for an hour and a half with heavy weights no, but I took a walk. I got my heart rate up. I was outside. It felt good. That's something. I'm going to celebrate that. When you start to celebrate yourself, guess what will happen? You'll start to celebrate your kids more. And I want y'all to think about, who will we all grow into becoming when we all feel celebrated? Like, isn't it time? Isn't it time for you to feel celebrated? Isn't it time? Don't you want your kids to feel celebrated? Like, what happens when people feel celebrated for just taking action, just getting started, just having today be a little different than yesterday? It will be this positive, contagious domino effect. And I want y'all to think about perfect. When we try to be perfect, want to be the perfect parent, the perfect wife, or the perfect sister, or the perfect friend, or the perfect woman, or the perfect man, right? There is no such thing as perfect. That's what keeps us in the 0%, because when we can't be perfect, we procrastinate and we just decide to get started tomorrow, next week, next year, never. That's where we stay at 0. What if we decided it was okay to show up just as humans and just to make a little tiny shift today, just a micro baby step? Imperfect action. We just took an imperfect action. Imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. 1% is a whole life of difference than 0%. This is how you begin to build a life that is truly way better than 5. This is how you go from a life of stagnation to one of transformation and limitless possibility. Have a great week, guys. Bye-bye. Hey, guys. If you want to close the gap between the parent that you currently are when your kids are pushing your buttons and the parent that you always intended to be, that calm, cool, and collected parent, no matter what's going on around you, I have my recipe for you. I wrote about it in my book, The Parent Gap, and I'd love to give you the free audio version. All you have to do is text the number 44222, that's 44222, and put the message in Mastermind Parenting, that's all one word, all caps, Mastermind Parenting to 44222, and we will send you over a free copy of my audio book, The Parent Gap, ASAP.